Hello, my name is Dr. Evan Hughes and welcome to the Vitality Project. Today's interview series is we're going to have Sifu Andrea Sheffield, who happens to be my older Kung Fu sister. This is really exciting to me because I've been practicing Kung Fu since 1996 and I've been practicing martial arts since I was about 12. I love martial arts. I think it's fantastic for vitality. And we have someone with us today with some good stories and some good information to share. So welcome, Andrea.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, so getting right into it, doing a little bit of research, Kung Fu has a reputation for being about whooping people.
Exactly.
And bringing a beating. And then you get into it, and I found out the origin was about monks looking to stay strong for their health. Mm-hmm. So, you know, what does your school do? Are we about whooping people? Are we for health? What's the focus?
It's a question that I get all the time, or it's an assumption that I have to deal with all the time. And that is that traditional martial arts, traditional Kung Fu, which is what I teach, traditional style of Chinese Kung Fu, was originally designed to promote health, well-being, longevity, and vitality. It was also used for self-defense, had very practical uses. But in the 21st century, it has come full circle from what it was originally designed to do, and that its best application in this day and age is to promote health and vitality in people of all different ages. But unfortunately, most people in the West have learned about Kung Fu only through the movies, television shows, and the media that have promoted and dramatized only the fighting aspect of the art. And so a lot of people just feel that their assumption about martial arts is that that's all it is. It's just learning how to fight, learning how to be a fighter, learning how to give a beating and take a beating. And unfortunately, they are truly missing the big picture and the much larger aspect of what the martial arts were originally designed for and what makes them still relevant today.
So that begs an interesting question. If you can use Kung Fu for your health, what's the advantage of doing, let's say, Kung Fu over something like weight training? Or maybe you want to do kickbox aerobics. I mean, is that what the Kung Fu has become? Is it more like aerobics now? Or
I think some instructors who have been as frustrated maybe as I have been with the dealing with the assumptions of what martial arts is all about have gone that route. They've tried to incorporate the whole fitness craze over the years and tried to tie that in, which can be done to some degree. But again, I feel like if people were educated about what traditional martial arts is really about, and I keep saying traditional, because there are certain types of martial arts that were developed later that are more about just the fighting aspect. The traditional styles, like I said, there's a much bigger value and bigger picture to what they are. But as far as getting back to the question, I have been involved in the fitness field my whole life. I started dancing when I was 3. I was a gymnast by the age of 9. I majored basically in health and fitness and exercise science in college. I worked in the health club industry for years, taught every type of exercise class known to mankind and a few that probably people don't even know about. What I found out over the years of being a professional in the field is that there are certain types of activities that can promote certain types of fitness in a person very, very well. For instance, if you want to be really, really flexible, if that's your goal, yoga is great for that. It's great for flexibility. If you want to improve your cardiovascular fitness to the best that you can, it's been proven that running is probably the fastest and best way to improve your cardiovascular fitness.
Yeah,
now,
I love running up hills for that.
Right.
Yeah,
and you may beat the heck out of your joints doing that, but if we're talking just very specific, what's the best activity for just this specific component of fitness? For flexibility, it'd be something like yoga. For cardiovascular, it would be running. For strength, just gross strength, weight training.
Yeah, lifting's awesome. Tough to beat.
Probably free weights. Higher risk of injury with free weights, but if you're talking about how to get strong and just that, okay? If you're talking about muscular endurance, okay, then again, it'd be another form of weight training or cross training, okay? So if you're only looking to do that, then those are your answers. However, that's very short-sighted because those particular types of activities also have inherent risks, as all physical activity does. Okay, so I've done all of those things before, and I've got myself into fitness relative to those activities. When I started doing martial arts, started doing Kung Fu at the age of 30, already a wife and mother of a 15-month-old baby. I walked into the Kung Fu school and I could do 1.5 push-ups because I had just had a baby the year before. I was completely out of shape from the shape that I had been in my whole life. And I found out that through the Kung Fu training, the ancient practices, the conditioning exercises, the philosophy about how to train, I got myself in the best shape of my life, even more so, never mind relative to my age. If you want to have the best flexibility, the best strength, the best endurance, the best cardio fitness combined in the lowest risk type of activity, I found that traditional martial arts did it for me.
That's
and
awesome.
a lot of people were really surprised by that because they're thinking, low risk, it's a fighting art. And so, we can talk more about that too, how that's adapted into the way the style is taught today, the way training is done today in traditional Kung Fu.
Well, there's so many places we can go from there, but the one I want to focus on is I had a patient come in last week who's a pregnant mother, and she's having issues with a child who's frank breech, and she's got about 2 weeks left to go. And she heard about the Webster technique, where chiropractors can adjust babies and the pelvis, and it flips. But what I found in her is there was a lot of fear, and this is a very fit woman. She dances, she's a personal trainer, like you, had a lot of knowledge and strength. And I just looked at her, I could tell, I said, how nervous are you that you're not going to be anything close to as strong or as fit or as attractive after the baby? And she said, terrified. And so it's extraordinary that you said you had a 15-month-old, and you're doing Kung Fu. I mean, is this a great state of courageousness, or did you have some knowledge the rest of the people don't? And you're a woman doing a fighting art in America. What made the leap for you to say, this is a great place for me?
Well, at the time, because I had done so many other types of activities, fitness and health promoting activities, I'd had those experiences, and so I knew what worked for me, but I also knew what didn't.
Probably seen a few fads over the years.
Yeah, just a few, and dove right into them just like everybody else, learned my lesson. But what I found was when I was looking for something to do after having the baby, I realized that, and again, I was 30, so I think a certain level of maturity too helped me at that point. I wanted to learn something. I wanted not only to get myself back into physical shape, but I also, and I think there's a lot of young moms out there and also those who have had kids that will tell you that they feel like their brain kind of came out with the baby, okay? Because it drains the body of a certain amount of energy or chi when you have children, and your body and your brain and your mind have changed biochemically. And so to get back or improve and get to a point where you feel that you are fit again.
Maybe bring your vitality back.
All the way, and that's really the word, because it's not that you feel, stupid after having a baby. That's not what I'm trying to say. But again, if you talk to a woman that's had children, because it's such a dramatic change and a dramatic thing for the body to go through, the mind cannot not be affected by that. So I realized when I wanted to get back into shape, I wanted something more holistic. I guess is the simplest way to put it. I wanted to actually learn something. And it was a family member that just mentioned, why don't you try martial arts? It's a full body exercise. I have been involved in movement art my whole life. I know that I love to move, and I love to learn how to move. And I wanted that aspect, that something else, that aspect of actually learning something, not just sitting on an exercise bike and pedaling, not just mindlessly following an instructor in a class, not just being told to go over there and lift so many repetitions and counting to 10. I actually wanted to learn something. And so that was really all it was that drew me in. I knew nothing about martial arts. I had never taken any type of martial arts class before I walked into this school at that age and in that shape, or not in that shape as it was.
And it's funny, as you're talking, I'm always telling people, encouraging people to get active, and I think the primary rule is that it's fun. I believe that safety is actually, it's really important, but it's actually less safe not to exercise. So it's good to take a little risk in an intelligent way and find something that ignites your passion. And I've almost felt doing Kung Fu, it's like living history, that it comes from so long ago, that we're studying the old ways. It's almost like the ancestors are there in the room with you.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're laughing at you because you're trying so hard.
I'm sure they are.
Well, that's great. And so can you talk a little bit about, particularly this interests me, is I've always had strong women around me in my life. You know, you're one of them, someone I admire for your strength and all the things you do. But also my mother's very strong, and there's again, there's a cross between the fighting arts, which is traditionally masculine, and we've done punching drills together, and I feel like I'm being hit by a Volkswagen, right? And I said to myself, geez, man, I would love to learn from a small person learning to hit really hard, because then with a little bit bigger frame, my goodness, what could I do with it, you know? But keeping it on health, what's the advantage of a woman learning how to hit? I mean, yeah, there's self-defense, but why would you learn punching drills and kicking drills, and how does that help a woman?
It's a great question. I mean, other than probably the obvious fact of if you do have plenty of women who understand the value of being able to defend themselves, knowing self-defense techniques, whether it's depending on maybe where you live, if you live alone, if you're a female college student going off to college in a big city or whatever. There's all that aspect that all makes sense. But it's a perfect question, and I get it a lot, because here I am, basically was a suburban housewife living in a very affluent, safe community. It's like, what do you want to do that for? That's the question that I get.
There are a lot of bored cops in this town, I think.
Yes, yeah, I think so. I hope so.
Yeah.
That's good for us.
I'm sure they do good work, the work that they need, but it's not like, you know, a tougher part of the city.
But I guess, you know, from being active my whole life and being moving my body in ways, whether it's dance or gymnastics or whatever, and challenging myself, I think that for me personally, that was a big aspect, that this was just a new challenge. And I didn't even look at it in terms of, I'm going to learn how to fight somebody. I had absolutely no interest in that. Certainly, again, if you look at my the demographic that I fit into as a married suburban housewife with a young child, why would I? And I say I don't want to learn that. That's not what I'm interested in. I have to give a lot of credit to my Sifu, my teacher, who happens to be, you know, your original Sifu too, and the grandmaster of our system. Master Chan is actually a living grandmaster that emigrated to this country, still lives in this country, brought this traditional style over. And really, he's the one that set the tone and the philosophy of how this traditional art was going to be delivered to the masses. And so I have to credit my teacher, who was one of Master Chan's original American students, for preserving that philosophy and passing it on to me. When I walked into that school, I had no idea whether or not I was going to like it, whether or not it was going to be, you know, just that. I was expected to learn how to fight and sparring all the time, and I admit I really wasn't interested in certainly not just that, and that I wanted the big picture. And Sifu Michael Johnson presented that in a way that that resonated with me, and that the focus was on personal development, developing yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally, just continuing to improve. And therein lied that I want to learn something was perfect. So I am learning how to defend myself. I am learning how to fight, but that seemed to be more the byproduct of the bigger philosophy of the training in the art. The main goal of the art was for improving yourself, and improving yourself, like I said, in all those aspects of fitness that I was talking about, and whether it's physical fitness as well as mental acuity and so forth. And then the fighting aspect was this kind of really interesting extra benefit that I got out of the entire training procedure. So.
It's like a shiny toy that comes along with,
yes.
oh, this is nice.
Yeah.
Put that there and let's go back to training. Can you dig a little bit into how it affects you mentally?
Yes. Again, having come right off of having a child, and now I'm 49, closing in on the big 50, and I find that all the aspects of the art, the memorization of the sequences of the forms, because it's a very form-intensive style, as you know, but most of all, just in the moment, the integration of each technique. And what I mean by that is that each movement has to have an intention. This is what makes it different from dance and gymnastics, which I did for years.
Or weightlifting, with the intention is to get it to pick it up and put it down.
Pick it up and put it down,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Okay, and then how you feel afterwards, good, bad, or otherwise. But the focus of the Kung Fu that I found that's required for Kung Fu, that integration of the mind and body, where you have to have intention in the movement, that has improved my mental acuity, certainly my memory from having to memorize the sequences. But the most important thing for me personally is the calmness. I am more mentally calm because of the martial arts training. And what's really interesting that I've discovered, not since just being a practitioner, but then becoming an instructor, is that Kung Fu is the great equalizer. I needed that calming effect because I tend to have a monkey mind. I tend to be excitable. That's who I am. I have someone else, I'll use my husband as an example, who is the calmest, coolest, collected person you'd ever meet. Sometimes he needs a boost in energy, physical or mental. You get the two of us in a Kung Fu class doing exactly the same type of training, even the exact same techniques. What he is getting out of Kung Fu is going to balance him. What I get out of Kung Fu will balance me. So it does different things for different people, but the end result is that it brings a higher level of development in those areas, physical, mental, emotional, but also a balancing, especially when you're talking about the mental and emotional aspects that are affected by this type of training.
Well, I'd like to touch on that a little because, I alluded to the differences between, the expectations of a woman versus a man in training. But what you just laid out is, when it actually comes time to do the Kung Fu, maybe a beginner requires a slightly different input, but pretty much after they're going, it's the same Kung Fu.
It's the same Kung Fu, and that's the magic that, and forgive me for using that word, but it really is, there's nothing mystical about it. It can be scientifically proven, but it's just that it is the magic of what Kung Fu is that you can take two totally different people, and really the gender doesn't matter, the age doesn't matter. The fitness level at getting going, starting, does not matter. Kung Fu has something for everyone. Okay, it will build you up instead of break you down, which a lot of different, not just martial arts styles, but physical activities in general, especially some of the current fads, you get these short-term benefits, but then at the end of the day, what it does to the body is it ends up breaking it down faster. That
interests me as a chiropractor, is I find that of all the different tissues of the body, when you start to work, the fastest to respond are the muscles. Now that makes sense for survival. If our lives are in danger and we need to get strong quick, muscles first. Okay, we can outrun the dinosaurs that have come back from extinction, right? But the problem is the joints are more slow, and so if you have big muscles or engines and small joints, it's like putting a jet engine in a Prius.
Yes, yeah.
And then you get people injured and with the great intentions, they get fit fast, get the results. How does Kung Fu avoid that calamity? Because for certain, you can still try too hard and hurt yourself, yes?
Yes. Well, and again, I have to say, as you know, with any physical activity, and I think most people know this, there's risk with any physical activity. There's risk getting up and walking up and down your stairs or walking out your front door. Okay, so let's put it in perspective.
I think the worst risk is to not be fit and try nothing. Yeah?
That's exactly it, and that's probably the biggest point to be made here is that like you said earlier, you've got to find something that you love to do that gets you moving. But getting back to what you're talking about here with Kung Fu, what I find that it's amazing how it builds the body up I'm sorry. what I find with Kung Fu is that it builds the body up in a balanced way that helps all the body's systems work to maximum efficiency.
So joints maybe are one system for the sake of this discussion.
Right.
Muscle is another system.
Yeah.
How else can you categorize it?
Well, what I've seen from the best practitioners in the system, Master Chan included, who is now 76 years old, and if you look at him, he doesn't look necessarily like an athlete. He's slight of build, okay? Very, very, very light, very slight in his build. He does not have a lot of muscle mass, but his strength to weight ratio is extraordinary, which enables him to function at the highest level that one could, you know, certainly for his age, I think probably even for my age, to see him move. And that's the thing that really struck me about Kung Fu, is that right now, one of the biggest kicks in the fitness industry is functional training, which I think is fantastic, and I totally, I'm totally on board with all of that. But what is ironic is that probably the best type of functional training is actually something that's been around for thousands of years. It's this ancient traditional martial arts style of Chinese Kung Fu, because it's designed biomechanically to move the way that the techniques are designed to have you move the way you're biomechanically designed to move. So it builds the body's ability to function, which that is the entire point of, I think, health and fitness, is that you want to maintain function at the highest level, whether you're talking about physical function, mental function, emotional function and control. You want to be able to function at the highest level for as long as possible. That's
one of the reasons I chose to stick with this system, in addition to having a history, is Grandmaster Chen and the way my Sifu moves. And yourself, is like, wow, you get to keep moving this way for a long time. Obviously, you have to adapt a little bit, but it has a future to it.
Yes.
Versus some of the other martial arts styles that I think are fantastic, but like Thai boxing is a perfect example. It's a very hard style that kick banana trees. And you go to hit one of those guys, and you can break your hand on them. They're so strong, they have to retire before they hit their mid-30s.
Right.
So, you know, I like what you said, what it's adapted to do is pretty key. And I like, you keep using the word traditional. Dig into that a little. You know, to me, that has to do with lineage and how long the system's been adapting. What is it about the traditional part that attracts you, that keeps you excited, that you think is important?
Well, there's a number of different things that fall under, I mean, that's kind of an umbrella term that I'm using, but I don't use it lightly. Unfortunately, the words traditional, authentic, original get thrown around, certainly in the West, quite a bit, a little bit carelessly. I say it with confidence about this style because I do believe that it truly is what it's supposed to be. It is a traditional, authentic, original system. And what I have found through studying in Walum for the past 15, 18, 19 years is that Master Chan has brought those philosophies along with him and delivered them to us. And what they are is that these grandmasters way back when they developed these traditional styles, their sole purpose in developing the martial art as it was to increase the longevity and the vitality of their lives. And so self-defense was, of course, a big part of that because of the times in which they lived and the place in which they lived. They had to defend themselves, certainly more so than we do, okay? But the whole point was to not only lengthen their life, but to lengthen it and also preserve the vitality of it. That was their goal. That's the goal of the art. And so that was what really resonated with me. And then Master Chan was living proof. Here I am seeing this man who at 76 is a little sad now because he can only jump 6 feet in the air instead of 8. And that's his feet off the ground.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is the thing that I find so ironic about that people in the West think that martial arts, that the only true aspect of it is its fighting nature. The fighting nature of the art is only the smallest part of what is a much, much, much bigger gift that has been, preserved for all of us. And I again, I have to keep going back to the Grandmaster, because if he had not preserved that, if he had only put forth the fighting aspect of the art, we would have lost a great gift that was developed a long time ago. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
So it's sounding like, martial arts is so big, and you know that from studying together for a while. There's so much to do. What happens with someone who wants to just dabble a little? I mean, do you have to do it for 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week to get any benefit at all? Do you get some benefit for a little, or is there a minimum amount of time to practice?
Well, what I tell people with any type of physical activity is that, unfortunately, there is no way to cheat it. There's no way around it. You can't get the benefit of something that you don't do. You can talk about it, but you're not going to get the benefit from just talking about it. You do have to do it, and you do have to give it enough time, because that's just the way the body and the mind works. You have to give yourself a chance. Having said that, when I first walked into my first Kung Fu class, Kung Fu school, I had no idea whether or not I was going to like it. I had no idea whether I was going to stick to it. And then when I did decide that it was something that I was going to try for a certain amount of time, twice a week, my intention was never to become an instructor. So again, the tenacity that you need to have is, first of all, in finding something like this that you can stick to, something that you like enough that it is not a chore to do. It's something that you look forward to.
Inspires you.
Yeah. That inspires you. And then the second thing is that, yes, that makes then the second thing easier, which is that you do have to have some level of consistency. You do have to spend some amount of time. Now, how much time, how much consistent, that unfortunately is very individual with a lot of people. Some exercise scientists have put out there, the old, you have to work out 3 times a week, 20 minutes each session, and you've got to do it for at least 3 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever. All of those are very broad guesstimates and guidelines. For each person, it's different. And when I have people come in, prospective students come in, and they ask me these questions, basically what I tell them is, what you need to do is find something that you love to do, then have fun doing it, and let the rest take care of itself. Because I said, where are you going?
Perfect.
You have your whole life. You're trying to find something to improve your life, so you're talking about your whole life. So why are you worried about the next 3 weeks, 6 weeks, or 6 months? Try this now, today. Think about it in, a day, a week, maybe as far as about a month. The way we sign people up at our school is we do basically 3 months at a time. 3 months gives somebody a chance to make it part of their lifestyle, to make it, to incorporate,
magic 90 days.
To incorporate it into their life, and they can see at the end of those 90 days, is it going to work for me or is it not? Is it logistically possible for me to even make it to class or not? Do I like this or don't I? Okay, so it's enough time, it's that happy medium, it's that enough time to see, is this working for me or isn't it? Okay, the tenacity that I want people to have is that if it isn't, please continue to look and find something that is. Because as you said earlier, the worst thing someone can do is to just give up.
That's a fantastic place to finish. I want to thank you, Sifu Andrea, my CJ, for coming here. This is a series, we're going to have a series of experts giving their knowledge and experience, and most importantly, their passion about having to keep the vitality in your life. My name is Dr. Evan Hughes, and thank you for participating in the Vitality Project.